Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering more of Labyrinth of Evil. Now, if you've been keeping up with this series, then you're all caught up, so let's continue. Today's is going to cover something pretty cool. Now, my question to you is, how is Darth Sidious seemingly always 10 steps ahead of his opponents and allies alike? Is it because he's become so powerful in the dark side that he can always discern events to come? That he can literally see the future, if you will? The answer I have is not really. At least not according to his Sith apprentice, Count Dooku. As the Separatist leader awaits Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi who are making their way to his chamber on the planet Tyth, the book Labyrinth of Evil by James Luceno talks more about how Count Dooku compares Yoda and Sidious. The Count reflects on the difference between how Yoda and Sidious view the Force, with Sidious embracing it fully, while Yoda deliberately limits himself, or at least that's how Dooku sees it. Here's the excerpt, and then as usual, we'll talk about it. Once again, Darth Sidious had divined the actions they would take well in advance of their own deciding. The talent had less to do with being able to peer into the future than with having access to streams of possibilities. Sidious wasn't unerring. He could be surprised or taken off his guard, as at Geonosis, as in the case of Gunray's Mechno chair, but not for long. His mastery of the dark side of the Force endowed him with the power to decipher the currents that comprise the future, and to comprehend that while those currents were manifold, they were not boundless. Such mastery was one of the skills that distinguished Sidious from Yoda, who believed the future was so much in motion it could not be read with any clarity, especially during times when the dark side was on the ascendant. But how could Yoda be expected to see the whole picture with one eye closed, deliberately closed? The Jedi accepted as a matter of faith that embracing the dark side meant cutting themselves off from the light, when in fact, the dark side opened one to the full range of the Force. There was, after all, only the Force. It was unfortunate for the Jedi that they believed the Force was theirs alone to use and honor. That sense of entitlement was evident in the way Kenobi and Skywalker called on the Force, in their fervor to confront him, opening doors with waves of their hands, clearing obstacles from their path with similar gestures, moving with what appeared to be numinous speed and agility, flourishing their blue blades as if they were powered by the will of the Force itself, while at the same time oblivious. So, as we can see, Sidious can't really know the future for certain, but the dark side does allow him to narrow the possibilities towards outcomes that are more probable than others. He can even manipulate events in order to help shift the future to what he wants, kind of like Qui-Gon and the Chance Cube, but on a grander scale. Whereas Yoda can see the future possibilities as well, but he considers them to be too in flux to ever really be certain what the outcome will be. Is that because the Sith try to push for a certain future, while the Jedi simply accept whatever is to come? Kinda seems so sometimes. It's the will of the Force after all, as they say, whereas the Sith really want to bend that will and make it what they want. Now, I'm not too sure, but the Jedi have glimpsed the future and altered it before, so there have been various apocalyptic visions in the history of the Jedi that the Order has attempted to prevent, and at times successfully so. Also, is there just one Force, as Dooku stipulates, and the so-called dark side clouds the future for the Jedi only because their Order deliberately limits their power due to being too conservative with what the Force can really offer? Is the dark side actually another name for the full spectrum of the Force? Dark just means unknown instead of evil, while the light is just one side of it. Or are the Jedi correct? In order to truly embrace the dark side, you have to cut off the light completely. Wasn't that Vader's constant struggle? Wouldn't the full spectrum be an even balance between the light and the dark? So are gray Jedi the only ones using the Force in balance? Or does balance mean something else? Something more complex than simply having the galaxy being tipped on an even amount between light and dark sides. For me, I always felt like Yoda and the Jedi Order, at least in the prequels, really limited themselves to everything and the true power that they could have had, when they just looked at the Force as two different sides when they could just use it in its entirety, Force lightning and all, but they would be the governors over how they would use that power. Dumbledore said something that I think really puts Yoda to shame in this philosophy here. He said, "It is not our abilities who make us who we are, but our choices." Or at least something like that, I'm paraphrasing. And it's really true. It just shows you that even Dumbledore really knew exactly what was going on with someone's power. So like Voldemort had okay, I'm going on the Harry Potter theory train now, but what I'm trying to say is Vader could have used his powers for good. Sidious could have used his powers for good. Yoda could have used his powers for evil. It really doesn't matter how strong you are or what type of the Force you use. Sure, I understand that once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. But there have been those that stray in between and just use the Force as the Force itself. And I think if you can master this, I think if you can truly level up to the point where you can master this fully and be in control of your powers and emotions, then you can really use the Force however you see fit. So the Jedi could use it for good, but using the entirety of the Force, and the Sith could use it for good as well, also using the entirety of the Force, or of course vice versa. So it's interesting to see Dooku's take on both of his masters. I enjoyed this little excerpt from the novel. Hope you enjoyed it too, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Now, fulfill